I'm going to go ahead and then turn it over to Noelle Patterson with CBEC Eco Engineering to talk about in-stream flows.
There we go. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'll be representing the also in its nascent glory in-stream flows action team. And we're centered around a primary question, which is how to balance water needs during winter peak flows between in-stream ecological flow needs and potential flood mar. And we've heard this question come up in a few different versions throughout the forum so far. We've also heard a lot about the many benefits of flood mar, but these are balanced with the clear benefit of leaving water in rivers for aquatic and riparian ecosystem benefits. So it's this balancing act question we have. And the action team has asked me to introduce a couple of concepts that are tools that can be used to help address this question. This is functional flows and the California Environmental Flows Framework, or CEF. And my background with these concepts comes from my dissertation work at UC Davis, helping develop the method to quantify functional flows. And so I'll thank you in advance for your patience. I have a couple extra slides in my action team update just to go over these concepts. Okay, so again, when we're talking about flood mar and functional flows, we're primarily focusing on winter peak flows, this time that is best for applying flood mar. But this is also a time that has unique benefits of these flows for ecosystems, including geomorphic functions, moving sediment through river channels, reforming channels, creating natural disturbances, and floodplain connections. And so this, again, begs the question of how much water should be left in the river for ecological needs. And kind of the converse side of this is what can then be used for flood mar. And so taking a quick step back on defining functional flows is first looking at some of the early methods of defining in-stream flows, most early with minimum in-stream flows. So that would be that red line going across the hydrograph. And this is sort of representing typical California hydrology. And so it's pretty clear here that a minimum in-stream flow does not acknowledge or protect that natural variability that is typical of California hydrology and important for our native ecosystems. And so then a big advancement is the 90-20 rule. And so again, what that is that on any day for daily flow, that if flow exceeds the 90th percentile for that day, then up to 20% of that day's flow can be diverted. And so this does go an extra step towards preserving that natural variability, but there still have been concerns raised with the 90-20 rule. Is it protective of aquatic ecosystems? And one potential concern can be if we take the top off of every peak flow, are we then able to still achieve that geomorphic work that is provided by wintertime peak flows? And so functional flows, here we are the key components of the natural flow regime that support ecological and physical river functions. And you've seen a few versions of this functional flows hydrograph throughout the forum so far. And so the idea is that there are 5 components of the natural flow regime typical of California that have been identified that are protective of these ecosystem functions. And again, the one that is most relevant in our flood mar conversation are these peak flows in the wintertime. And again, CEF, this is the California Environmental Flows Framework, is sort of the management framework that applies functional flows science. So there's 3 different steps in CEF. The section A is quantifying or identifying naturally occurring functional flows for a given river system. And then section B is modifying those functional flows as needed to match the realities of the river system today. For example, if this is a highly modified river system where historically occurring peak flows would exceed the infrastructure capacity of the system, then those peak functional flow targets should be modified. And then section C is the big balancing act between functional flow targets and other flow needs and benefits in the system. So of course, flood-mar, a big benefit that needs to be balanced along with the in-stream flows that are protective of aquatic ecosystems. And so this slide is to give a very theoretical application of how functional flows as a method could look in the context of flood-mar. So in these 2 hydrographs, the blue is an example of naturally occurring flow throughout a water year typical of California. The red is a functional flow hydrograph, so hitting those 5 key components that are protective of ecosystems. So anything behind the red line would be, for example, available for other uses. And so let's say that we're going across the water year, not quite sure what's going to happen, but then a big flow is forecasted in January, as this example would show. Let's say that's something like a 10-year return interval flood that hits a lot of those geomorphic benefits of functional flows for ecosystems. And so that can be set aside for functional flow purposes, for example. And then flows after that could be available for recharge after checking that box. And a connection I saw with one of yesterday's talks, Kristen's from Yolo County, is that idea that maybe even some of those early peak flows are very sediment laden and not the most effective for flood-mar. So we might even be able to find some of those win-win situations, both for protecting ecosystems and expanding our flood-mar potential benefits. Right, so thanks for hanging with me for a couple extra slides there. Questions for you all to consider. What more would you like to know about in-stream flow criteria, functional flows for CEF? Do you have a river system to propose for a pilot flood-mar CEF analysis? I think some of these questions have been considered in various circles around the room, but please feel welcome to share those with the action team. And of course, are you interested in joining? This is a really important topic for conversation, and the more participation we have in this action team, the more effective we can be. This might not be an exhaustive list. I think this might just be who has been at the most recent meetings, but please make your voice heard and get your name on this list if you would like to participate. Yeah, thank you.